long you plan to be in town?
Oh, I'll be out of your hair as soon as I track down the scrolls that are infiltrating your planet.
Scrolls?
Shapeshifters. They can transform to any life form down to the DNA. Oh boy, you guys don't have any clue, do you?
Whoa, hold on. How do we know you're not one of those shapeshifters?
Congratulations, Agent Fury. You have finally asked a relevant question.
Oh, congratulations to you, Star Force lady. You're under arrest.
Hi, welcome everyone. This is episode 63 of the Comics in Motion podcast. As always, I'm Chris Phelps, and my co-host and good friend is Mr. Dave Horrocks.
Hi, Chris, and hello to our listeners out there. Welcome to Comics in Motion. What we like to do here is we like to review movies and TV shows that are based on comic books. Myself, I'll be reviewing from the perspective of a long-time comic book reader.
And I'll be reviewing from the TV and movie perspective.
And what we also like to do is we also like to spoil the hell out of everything we review. So if you haven't watched our choice of the week, then we'd advise you to proceed with caution. And remember, with an average podcast comes no responsibility. Now, we've got a very special guest joining us today. So we actually have Leo Rydel, who's an entrepreneur, writer, blogger, and founder of Geekly Goods. So welcome to the show, Leo.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on. I can't wait to talk some Captain Marvel with you guys today.
Awesome,
Leo.
Awesome. So, Leo, tell us a little bit about Geekly Goods.
So Geekly Goods is my wonderful, I like to call it a baby, but it is my wonderful project that I started back in October of 2018. And originally we were just a geek store. So we were a geek superstore that sold goods based on the trending geek theme of the month. October was Venom, just to give a little perspective. And I would sell those themed goods, but from those sales, I would take a portion of the sales and donate it back to funds supporting arts education, because in my experience in high school, I didn't have the arts programs that I really wanted, and the ones that we did get ended up getting cut once the budget cuts came along. And I noticed the trend in education, especially in U.S. education right now, is that when the budget cuts do come, arts is the first thing to go. So I decided to dedicate half of Geekly Goods to that. And then the other half is a content creation portion on YouTube. So I started that back in later October when I decided I wanted to make some videos as well. And we've just been making weekly videos that encompass the geek world in all different directions, including comics, movies, technology, we even do food. I've done some food tastings as well. And we just want to foster a community that includes nerds of every different corner of the galaxy. I'm talking blurs. I'm talking nerds of color, Latinx, the Latinx nerd community, geeks of all colors, shapes, and sizes. We just want to foster that conversation and keep the shit moving. So, guys, check us out on geeklygood.com and youtube.com/geeklygoods. And we'll keep on making these videos. I can't wait to talk about Captain Marvel some.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And it sounds like a really good cause as well. There's not many people setting out, a little startup, and then straight off the bat donating. So absolutely hats off to you for that.
Oh, thank you so much, man. I mean, like I said, as a kid, I had a music program at my high school that ended up getting cut, and I just don't want that to happen to any other kids around. I want everybody to be able to have their equal chance at pursuing something that they want to pursue, whether it be music, arts, drawing comics, whatever it is. Everybody should have a chance to do what they really want to do, and art shouldn't be fading away so much, because you can't spell earth without art.
Very good, Leo. I think as well, I don't know whether you agree with this, Dave, but over in the UK, it's very, very unusual that a lot of businesses, especially like Dave said, would even contemplate giving back straight away, Leo. It's so commendable. And I think over in the US, it's something that you as a culture, you guys are used to giving back to people within your own communities, whether it be veterans or other things like this, like an educational thing. I think it's fantastic. I think you've got to pat yourself on the back, really, because to see it happen from nothing and then you're already growing, you must be really proud.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, like I said, I feel like a father. I just almost like, let me pat my baby on the back. It's growing, and we're scaling the YouTube slowly. And I am in the middle of recreating the store section to be one overall section and then a couple of featured items each month. So then people won't feel like they missed out on something, so they can actually come back and grab whatever they wanted to get.
So what kind of stuff can they find if our listeners head over to the store and have a browse around? What kind of merchandise can they pick up?
So think in the realm of Marvel, DC, geekly-based merchandise, shirts, hoodies, hats, and even accessories. We just imported last month this multi-tool, this Punisher multi-tool that functions as a bottle opener, a small wrench, and several different other tools, and just kind of geek accessories as well. Like I said, I'm also still in the middle of rebranding that whole website section, so we can actually get a general store section. And right now it's themed for the Punisher, which was our January theme for season 2 of the Punisher.
Awesome. And just while we're on the Punisher then, so what did you make of that season 2?
Oh man, what were my thoughts?
Yeah.
You know, I really liked the guns blazing scene. I wanted a little bit more of that. I thought they were going to go more General Frank Castle. You know, when I think Frank Castle, I think of, oh my God, this one-man war killing machine taking down like mobsters and mafia gang members and things like that. And I think we got that in Frank, but the story didn't really encompass that. I felt that the story just kind of was being dragged along by the character, and it just wasn't as strong as him. And I would have just liked a little bit more from everyone else and a little bit less from some of these other characters that had such major roles, like Madani, for example. I thought she was just a little too major of a character for everything that was going on. I loved John Pilgrim and wanted a lot more from him.
Yeah,
but I felt like his arc was just cut short, cut very silent at like close to the end. Same with Billy Russo. I wanted more from him, but he was being I forget her name, controlled by the psychologist. I mean, I feel like he was being slightly helped a little too much by her, and it was just like middle of the road for me. I mean, I really liked Frank, and I really like John Bernthal in that role, but everybody else is just a little bit okay to me. I would have loved to see more Pilgrim. I would have loved to see Pilgrim and Billy Russo team up, but didn't get that. And I just think that it had a lot of opportunities there that it didn't really go for.
Yeah, no, it's good. Sorry, Chris, I cut across you. Go ahead.
I agree, Leo. I think we both said this. I love wanting violence in movies, and I got sick to death of it in the end. Towards the end, it was just seemed to be, like you say, John Berthel's performance just elevated the whole series, because there wasn't much there other than the fact that every episode had to have a set piece where the Punisher just goes crazy, you know, and takes everyone out. And even at the start, I joked about it in our review, but he slept with that woman in the bar. He spent maybe 12 hours with her, meets her son, takes him for breakfast. And then later on, he's talking to his friend, the guy who, the veteran, the guy who's got his legs amputated, in the car, about how special she was and stuff. And it's like, you know, she made me feel human again. It's like, you spent 12 hours with her, Frank. It's not like he spent months with her. I was laughing my head off thinking, oh, come on. It made perfect sense for her to normalise Frank and give him that belief again of his wife and his family and his kids. But he'd literally spent 12 hours with her, and I was like, no, even I can't buy that, you know. Like, so, but it was like they were chewing the fat over like women and stories, and it just didn't make any sense to the character to me. But yeah, I agree, it was middle of the road. I give it middle of the road as well. Which the first series I thought was great. Yeah,
same. I mean, and you brought up that woman, and I'm like, gosh, I forgot about her because she was like so in and out. Yeah. I mean, I really wanted her to come back, but I think we've seen her that one episode.
Yeah, one episode. And I think the second one she was in the hospital, and that was it. That was the end of it, wasn't it? John Pilgrim threatened her, and then we never saw her again. So yeah, very bizarre.
I wonder if that's on the cutting room floor. But Leo, so what's the next theme? So previously it was Punisher. What was next?
Oh, now I'm currently working on the next phase. Black Panther was in February, and now I'm currently working on generalizing the entire theme. So I'm going to strip it of that overall theme and just generalize and have some featured items. We're going to do Captain Marvel this month.
Awesome. Well, listeners, get yourself across there. There's some really cool stuff there. And as you've heard, you know, a lot of the proceeds go to a good cause as well. So get over there, geeklygoods.com, and the YouTube channel, Leo, is youtube.com.
Geekly Goods.
Geekly Goods. Awesome.
Great.
Well, should we get into our comics background then, Chris?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, so bit of an unusual one this week. So the very first Captain Marvel character appeared in Whiz Comics issue 2 back in 1940 and was published by Fawcett Comics. But we're not going to talk about that today because we'll talk about that next month when we cover Shazam. And we'll go into a little bit of the difference and why we've got lots of different Captain Marvels running around the various universes. So this Captain Marvel that we're going to focus on is the Carol Danvers Captain Marvel. Now, Carol Danvers first appeared in Marvel Superheroes 13 back in March 1968 and was created by Roy Thomas and Gene Colan. In that story, she appeared as an officer in the United States Air Force and met Dr. Walter Lawson, who was also Marvel's Captain Marvel at that time. Basically, DC had the rights. They hadn't published it for ages. And cheeky little Stan, created himself a character with the same name, and DC couldn't do anything about it. Now, at the time, we'd learned that Captain Marvel was a Kree warrior called Mar-Vell, and Carol was basically involved in an explosion, and her DNA was fused with Mar-Vell's, which is what gave her superhuman powers. Now, it took around 30 years for going from, essentially she had a name of Ms. Marvel, so it was created in 1977 and it was of the time, let's say that. And she also had brief interludes where she was called Binary. She's also been known as Warbird as well. And as the Binary persona, she was possibly her most powerful, and she'd been experimented on by the Brood, which was one of Chris Claremont's favorites. And Chris Claremont was one of those writers that seemed to quite like Carol and sort of playing around with her as well. Now, when she lost those Binary powers, she fought with alcoholism for quite a bit, so that's quite often referred back to in the comics. Now, she's been part of the Avengers and also the Defenders at different times, and actually featured as Captain Marvel in the 2005 House of M storyline, which was a false reality that was created by Scarlet Witch. Now, in the 2000s, she really started to come more and more to prominence in the Avengers storylines, but it's not until 2012 that she eventually decided to take on that Captain Marvel mantle. And that's after a conversation with Steve Rogers, where he's kind of like saying, well, why don't you just go ahead and do it? So a little bit about the comics background there. Chris, what about the movie background?
Yeah, well, development of this film started in May 2013, but was officially announced in October 2014, and it was PR'd as the first female-led superhero film for Marvel Studios. Nicola Perman and Meg Lefevre were hired as the writing team. Brie Larson was announced as Danvers in the 2016 San Diego Comic-Con, with Anna Boden on as the first female-led director for Marvel. And she was brought on board in April 2017. They started the principal photography and shooting in January 2018 and then finished production around July 2018 in Louisiana. Now, Agent Coulson and obviously Nick Fury were both de-aged for this film. Very well, I might add. Very much Ant-Man and Wasp, Michael Douglas again, to set it in the 1990s. Now, one of the things that did stand out for me was they chose LA to film this. And one of the reasons they did it was they felt that LA isn't used that much in films anymore. Obviously, a lot of these films are based around New York, Chicago, things like that, some of the sort of metropolis-type places around the US. So they actually went with LA because it felt fresh, which, yeah, good choice, I think, to be honest. And also, it gives a good timestamp as well around the 1990s for this character. Now, they wanted to give Captain Marvel her own origin story, so they felt like by making it in the 1990s, it gives her her own sort of timestamp within the MCU, and it also explains her absence within the later MCU films and why we never saw her before in the Avengers and that. So that's why they actually went back to that timeline. And the reason obviously being that she's fighting off in wars in space and doing her own thing sort of thing. In August 2016, the principal writing had been done, but what they decided to do, and you two guys will have to help me on this, is they decided to change the origin story slightly for Captain Marvel because he said it drew too much similarities to DC Comics character, the Green Lantern. Now, before I go any further, I don't know whether any of you two know the background on that. Is that actually correct? The researching was there, and I've read it quite a few times, but I don't know the Green Lantern's backstory at all.
Well, it is a little bit. So, I mean, in terms of, okay, so there's several Green Lanterns, but the Hal Jordan one, so the one that we saw Ryan Reynolds play, I guess you could say that is kind of similar, isn't it? You know, he'd been past the ring after an alien crashed on the planet, and he gave it across to Hal Jordan. So I think I can see why they might think that. Again, in the comics, it comes from an explosion, and like I say, the Marvel's DNA fuses with Carol's. That's how she ends up with the powers there. But I mean, we've discussed it lots on this show, but what I'm always so impressed that Marvel Studios seem to do. I mean, Carol Danvers, she's quite a convoluted character. She's been passed around from lots of different writers who've done lots of different things to her. So I think to boil it down for the movie, they've done a fantastic job again. Not to show my hand too much early on, but yeah. So it is quite different to the comics.
Yeah.
But I think they've made a good choice there.
No, good. Thanks for that, David. And going down the same sort of route as well, the producer, Nate Moore, decided that with this origin story, they were going to change it slightly to not be like the traditional stuff that we've seen. So their format, and I'm quoting Nate Moore on this, which is you meet the character, they have a problem, they get powers at the end of the first act. By the end of the second act, they learn about the powers. The third act, they probably fight a villain who has a function of the same powers. I'm quoting, obviously, there. And instead, they decided with Danvers that from the opening scene of this film, and we'll get into this, that her powers are there. And it was a case of a flashback situation. So they wanted to do it slightly different with this one. Now, this is where I'm absolutely blown away. As of today, gentlemen, it has made $455 million worldwide, and it's not been out a week yet. Now, it's made $153 million in the United States and Canada and $302 million in other territories, which I find absolutely astounding. Now, they had a budget of $100 million. They also got a $20 million grant as well from the government and the arts. I think it's one of the arts sections, Leo. You might know who they are, but basically, so that's already offset them already. So it's been an absolute financial success, and it's going to hit, predictive-wise, over $1 billion. And just by today, for Marvel's MCU alone, they've actually made $7 billion in profit. That's profit. That's nothing else, just pure profit. By the time the Avengers run comes at the end of April, probably going into the summer, it'll be over $8 billion in profit, which I think is absolutely sensational. Now, critically, it's at 79% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's off 344 reviews, which is really good. 344 reviews, David. I mentioned this a few episodes ago. With the series stuff, we did The Punisher and Titans and obviously the Umbrella Academy. You're looking at 20, 30 reviews. This has had loads of reviews, so be at 79% is really good. He's got an average user rating of 6.8 out of 10, and basically it's positive on Rotten Tomatoes. On Metacritic, it's at 65 out of 100 off 53 critics' reviews. And my favourite one is the Cinema Score poll, which has an A+ to F scale, and it's sitting at A at the moment, which is really, really good. So great scores all round and totally positive. So that's all I've got for that one, Dave.
Well, we've got to talk a little bit, and I don't want to spend too long on it, but this movie's actually, and the trolls out there have actually managed to get Rotten Tomatoes to change their game a little bit, haven't they, with the audience score?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think what they'd done, because what seemed to happen was the trolls were driving down the audience score before anyone had seen the film. And now, I mean, Leo, you're probably into with website building, you're probably into the analytics a lot more than Chris and I are. But I mean, it's pretty easy to see, isn't it? If you're getting targeted from, a smallish number of users.
Yeah, I think they said it was something over 55,000 reviews that they had to recycle.
Wow.
That were just blatant trolls. I mean, literally just people were writing like one sentence like, oh, this is Captain SJW and making all these random jokes just to drive the score down. And they ended up, like I said, throwing out like over 55,000 reviews. And it kind of scares us people that really do take time to review films and enjoy them, because then it becomes this whole liability issue on all of us, and it begs the question: will Rotten Tomatoes accept fan reviews? Like, will they accept early fan reviews? Because I did submit for Rotten Tomatoes, so I haven't heard back to be a tomato meter critic, but I function off of those reviews. Like I review my reviews early because I end up seeing the movie early. Now, for me, somebody who does that, is it going to be locked, or is there going to be some kind of restriction because of this one instance? It just kind of sucks for those of us who actually really enjoy movies and talking about them.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just the phrase that comes to mind is, this is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah,
literally.
No, it's true. And I also think as well, it also validates how genuine are the actual proper reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, because for anybody, like you say, Leo, it questions everything about what we do as a pastime. You know, we love reviewing stuff. It's just a shame that the platform's there. But I do think that from the get-go, you cannot review it until you've actually seen it, can you? And also, you can't stop trolls, can you? They're everywhere. Twitter, Facebook. It's a shame. I just hope that they have good moderators who can sort of realise these people are not genuine, especially if they're creating the accounts just to do it. It's pretty obvious, isn't it, that there's an ulterior motive, sadly.
Yeah, you know, if you got that Twitter user that has one follower or one post and it's just that, it should be pretty obvious, but I don't know. They could put up some gatekeeping restrictions. We really got to wait and see what they're going to do with the rating system.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Well, Chris, should we go into our review?
Let's go.
Okay, so we're introduced to Veers, who's part of the Kree Empire's Star Force team, and she's suffering from reoccurring dreams about a past life that she doesn't remember. Her mentor, Jon Rog, leads them on a mission to rescue an undercover operative who's infiltrated a group of shape-shifting aliens known as the Skrulls and sworn enemies of the Kree. Veers is captured by Skrull Commander Talos, and their memory probe reveals more memories before she manages to escape and ends up crash landing on Earth, bringing her to the attention of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, Leo, what did you make to this whole first act?
I kind of compare this first act to the first act of Man of Steel in that I feel like it was just a little dragged on. I thought the character interaction was just a little bit dry. I liked her team, and I liked that we got Djimon Hounsou's character back. We're going to see Ronan. I was really excited for these characters to come back, and I was very excited for Jon Rog to make his debut in the MCU, played by Jude Law. But I didn't get a lot of good, meaty character interactions in that section. And when her and Jude Law were training together, I thought the energy was just really flat. I didn't get this mentor-mentee relationship that I really wanted. I thought they were going to play off each other a little bit better. I thought they were going to have a little bit better on-screen chemistry together, even just Brie and Jude Law themselves. But I felt it was just a little bit dry, a little bit meandery. I would have just liked some more character interactions, but I did love the world building. I loved the ships. I was hoping for some kind of galactic war to break out, but it didn't really get there. I did enjoy seeing the Skrulls depicted on screen, the Kree depicted on screen, and just this overall energy of something's wrong, something's not going right. But I mean, I just didn't get that like Neo Morpheus type of interaction that I really wanted from those characters. And I think that was kind of sacrificed to some of the world building. I would have loved that ragtag team to kind of just, you know, give me a little bit of punchiness like Guardians of the Galaxy. You don't have to be that comedic. You don't have to nearly be as goofy or funny, but just give me a little bit more energy. I feel like Djimon Hounsou was really hyped up. It was really hyped up for his character's return. And really he was just kind of sitting in the background for most of it and playing the usual cast. Like I would have loved a little bit more play with that character. And just with the entire galactic team themselves, the team of Kree led by Jan Rog, I would have loved to see some more interactions with those characters. I mean, we had Minerva in there and really didn't get that much from her either. I think I just wanted some more from the characters in that. So because there wasn't that much energy, it just kind of dragged along to me. But I did love the CGI. I loved the world. I loved the galactic spaceships and the galaxy and everything like that. I just would have loved a little bit more focus on character.
Yeah, I agree, actually, Leo. I think the first 15 minutes, it just seemed to be all over the place, the story and different things. And I wasn't convinced by Jude Law's casting as her sort of mentor. And he's never been that type of guy. He's always been, obviously, you know, you look back at Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr., he's a supporting character. I know he's a supporting character at the start, and as we'll get into how his character evolves later on in the review, but I genuinely was the same. And I also felt that for someone who doesn't know anything about Captain Marvel, my wife sat next to me. Now, she watches these films with me. She's seen all of them, but she doesn't know the story. She couldn't tell me now what happened in Infinity War, but we watched it all, you know. So I had to sort of give her cues about the first 10, 15 minutes about what was going on, who the Skrull were. They were set in the 90s, you know, stuff like that. There was certain things that I felt that if you have as an origin story, usually it gets told in the first half hour what's going on, everything. And I felt with this, it was a bit difficult to follow. Even if you don't know anything about the origin or who the character is, I thought it was quite difficult. And I just didn't think the Jude Law and the teaming up thing was that good, because I also felt it wasn't Guardians of the Galaxy, but in my head, I don't want to sort of reveal everything already, but I thought there's something not right about Jude Law's character in this. He doesn't seem as convincing a good guy as what they're trying to make out. And I don't know about yourself, Dave.
Yeah, I guess I didn't notice it plodding along, but now discussing it, I think you're right. I guess I was just, you know, I was like a cat on hot bricks going into this. I was just so excited about it. I think I texted you, didn't I, Chris, yesterday before I went, because I saw it yesterday, you saw it this morning, and so we're really getting our thoughts down pretty fresh. But yeah, certainly thinking back to it, yeah, it was kind of ploddy. It did feel a little bit like Guardians of the Galaxy to me. So when they were going from place to place, the way that the place name would pop up on the screen just felt quite Guardians to me, but without that initial energy. You know, when you start off with Guardians, you're straight into the music scene, aren't you? And it's just a very, very different feel there. But one of the things I should have mentioned right at the top, actually, that brought a bit of a tear to my eye was how they introduced the movie. So before the movie even starts, you get the Marvel credits, don't you? And it was all Stan Lee, different shots of Stan.
Yeah, that was
I
good.
thought it really brought a lump to my throat, that.
Yeah, it was. He's come up. Was it Thank You, Stan, at the end of it? Yeah, I thought it was really good. Really nice. So, even with Sam, my wife, nudged me and said this. She went, "That's lovely, that." I said, "Yeah, it was really good. Really well put together."
Yeah. But yeah, I think I thought the effects were good. I thought that I didn't look at what the budget was, so it's interesting, Chris, you say it's like 100 million. Now, obviously that's a lot of money, isn't it, to all of us three? But in terms of making a movie like this, I think they've done pretty well with that budget. Yeah.
It's very self-contained.
Yeah, so I think, unfortunately, when you're going in with some of the baggage, you know, knowing some of these characters and the Kree, they're not particularly nice. So I'm already expecting a bit of a turn somewhere. But yeah, I think I was probably more on the forgiving side for it being plodding initially, I think, than you guys. I thought the scrolls looked great. I thought that the uniforms looked great. I think, Chris, I'd mentioned, hadn't I, that when we saw Aquaman, which we both enjoyed, I thought that the Atlanteans, when they came out of the water, it just looked a bit Power Rangers to me.
Yeah.
But I thought these suits, and the costumes and everything, I thought were just a step above that. I thought they looked great.
Yeah. What about yourself, Leo? Did you think that?
Oh, yeah. I thought I loved their outfits. I love the Kree outfits. And does it seem, maybe I'm remembering this wrong, but does it seem like the final film definitely just kind of cleaned things up in terms of those outfits and the scroll? Because I remember when I seen that first trailer for Captain Marvel, and I was like, wow, they look a little bit goofy. But then when I finally got to the theater, I was amazed at how the scrolls looked. I don't know if they probably did a little touching up between then and now, but it really looked crisp at the end of the day.
Yeah, quite possibly they tidied it up. Unlike, I still go back to, Infinity War when Mark Ruffalo's in the Hulkbuster. And I still wonder how that actually happened, because everything else they tend to do looks so great. I must admit, when she first goes into the Supreme Intelligence, I guess I thought that looked a little bit false. But apart from that, all of the world building stuff I thought looked absolutely fantastic.
Now, Leo, I like to bring a slight comedy element sometimes to the reviews. Now, can you both bear with me on this? But the only problem I have with this film, so I think the first 15 minutes was a bit ploddy, but after that, I did enjoy it a lot. But I have a big problem, right, guys? Now, please indulge me. It's going to be something that both of you are going to go, Chris, what are you talking about? And obviously, Leo, you've only just met me. You can happily tell me to shut up. Obviously, you don't know what I'm going to say. Who told Brie Larson that she could run in any way, shape, or form? She's probably the slowest superhero I've ever seen. And the worst running style. And Samuel L. Jackson, he's obviously 70 years old, who the de-aged. And the sections to get him to run, I'm like, I probably could walk faster. Now, I'm not a fast runner, Leo. Dave knows me personally. We've played football. I'm one of the slowest runners you can ever meet. But even I would give Carol Danvers a run for her money, because
I know.
I'm telling you, when she was running for certain things, when she didn't have her shoes on, when we've had the whole fight scene, because she gets captured by the Skrull,
what?
And Talos and that are using the memory probe, and then she's got they've put these sort of big, I don't know what they are. They're all round her hands, aren't they? So she can't use a
power dampeners.
Yeah, like dampeners or something. And we get this great scene, don't we, where they're chasing her and she gets out finally of this memory probe. But she's running around. I just kept thinking John McClane, Die Hard. I was thinking they're going to smash the glass in a minute, and she's going to try and put someone's shoes on who are too small for her. And then she goes, she has a fight. She beats about 20, but she kept running up and down and thinking she looked so slow, and it just looked so awkward the way she was running. And I don't know whether it was the suit she had on or what. I know it doesn't affect the film. I'm sorry for anyone out there who's not seen it. You're going to be calling me rotten, but it just really took me away. And the sections with Samuel L. Jackson and her when they're running, I was just like, come on, put some effort in, because she seemed to speed up when she was jumping on things, but when it was just her running herself, I kept thinking she's not going to catch anybody here.
And that's kind of interesting, because that kind of goes to what I had thought, and I'm jumping ahead just a little bit here. The choreography was pretty off. I think in most of it, I can't recall a scene where, Carol Danvers is actually fighting like fist to fist. And it looks that convincing. Even in the beginning of the film, when her and Jude Law are training, I'm like, ooh, these cuts are pretty poorly timed, because it just doesn't look, I don't know, it doesn't look like an effective battle to me. It just didn't. I guess it can go hand in hand with the running that I didn't really notice, but I'll probably notice now if I watch it again.
I've ruined it for both of you. I must admit, Leo, one of the things that I jump back on, and Dave knows probably where I'm going to go with this, is the worst thing I've ever seen for fighting is Iron Fist Series 1. Now, it wasn't as bad as that, but I do understand, because I did think, that's what I was saying, the first 15 minutes in the Jude Law, sort of when she just knocks on his door and goes, "Do you want to fight?" I was just thinking, I know it sounds stupid, I understand, we have to understand it, but I love the fact that they're on this other world, this other galaxy, other universe, but they all speak perfect English, don't they? You know, it's just, I know it sounds really stupid, but I know we won't be able to understand them in that respect. But
apart from the South African scroll.
Scroll, yeah. Yeah. But do you understand what I mean? Like, you're going all over, and they all speak, and I don't know. That's why I think the first 15 minutes I just felt were a bit off. But after that, I did enjoy it. But the running, I beg both of you to find the running, please. And put me wrong on this, on you, Dave, as well, if you think I'm way off with this.
I was just thinking, because we called out Michael Keaton, didn't we?
Yeah.
From that 1989 Batman as being a ridiculous runner. So we've got a couple of candidates for the worst runner superheroes there. But I reckon Brie, Michael Keaton's obviously got a few more years on him now, so Brie might stand a chance there. But I do agree about the fight choreography, though, because I don't think, and again, it was really from that first scene when she was sort of tangling with Jude Law. We're spoiled, aren't we? You know, we've just called out Iron Fist, which we regularly do, quite honestly. But, you know, we're spoiled by things like Daredevil, where it's just phenomenal fight choreography. And this was just all a bit stiff and clunky, I think.
Yeah, and with weird transitions, I mean, it's just like, I think it was when they were fighting, and when he actually caught her arm, she threw the punch and it cut, and he had already grabbed her arm, and I'm like, I don't know about that transition. It just is not that convincing to me. It's tight and it's not, but not in a good way. It's just sloppy and a little uncoordinated. I think Captain Marvel in the comics, and I'm like, this is a chick who would punch somebody in the face and they would fly through space all the way to another galaxy. I want to see that. I want to see her just, she could level a building with one punch. I want to see that level of damage done.
But Leo, you make a great point. But she gets stopped by 3 people on a train. Yep. You know what I mean? Now, Leo, we talk in one of our reviews, episode 50. We review Superman 3, Christopher Reeve, and we talk about. Have you seen the Superman 3, Christopher Reeve one? With Richard Pryor? Oh, right. Well, there's a scene at the start where he has trouble pulling a sunroof off a vehicle because the guy's drowning. Uh-huh. He lifts up a whole ice lake with his 2 hands, and there's no continuity with his strength. And I think you've just hit the nail on the head there, because she's fighting Jude Law, is obviously a super being. She punches him, doesn't she, and he flies. And I agree with what you said earlier. I think you made a great point. The Neo and Morpheus scene at the start of The Matrix, where he downloads all the karate and the jiu-jitsu and everything. And and they start fighting. I mean, Matrix is one of my favourite films. So I totally agree. And it didn't feel like that, did it? I didn't understand why they were fighting. It didn't make any sense at all. He was trying to say you've got to control your powers, but it didn't give that proper vibe off.
Oh, and the quote was weird. Yeah, he was like, "You have to control your emotions. Control those emotions." And I'm like, "What are we trying to say here?" I'm not really convinced that this has nothing to do with politics. It was just a little bit weird. Like, why does it have to be about emotion? I mean, it almost sounded like they were trying to say, well, bringing in emotion is a good thing because I'm a woman. And I'm like, I don't really need that kind of storyline. Just say, learn restraint or something. It was kind of odd to say it was control your emotions. I don't know. I'd never heard that from the other Marvel heroes or any of the other Marvel galactic beings. So why did it come into play now?
I guess I read it as it was more like a Dr. Spock. Is it Dr. Spock or Mr. Spock? I never kind of quite remember, but I thought it was more one of those where, more so than her being a woman or anything. But although there's a bit later where someone asks, the biker asks her to smile.
Yeah.
And I thought, have they just stuck that in later? Because there was a lot of criticism, wasn't there, from that first trailer about the fact that she's not smiling or anything. And I thought, that's surely too much of a coincidence.
Yeah.
Just smile.
I didn't even get that one, Dave. Yeah, very good, very good.
But I mean, Leo, what did you make to the Skrulls? Having seen them in the comics, what did you make to them being brought to the screen there?
Are we talking just the first act or like the whole?
Just the first act, but just in general, sort of when you're introduced to them.
I like the introduction, especially because Jude Law was talking with Ronan, and they were kind of just had a little bit of dialogue about how these guys, spread across the galaxy and they wipe people out, and I'm like, that's very Skrull-like. I'm really feeling this. I want to say the first act, I was very excited to see where they went with the Skrulls. Overall, I towards the second half of the film, and I guess I'll save a little bit for once we get into the next acts. Did not really like what they ended up doing, unless it is some kind of trap or ploy into Secret Invasion. Otherwise, I didn't really like what they did with the Skrulls as their character. Now, as their look, on the other hand, I love how they looked. I loved the transformation, that whole animation of them kind of, taking, like, it's like the meat of human flesh wrapping around them and them transforming into another human. I loved that. I loved how conniving they felt in the beginning, because the Skrulls are secretive. They're conniving little. I called them conniving little space goblins to my friend the other day. And that's kind of what I got in the beginning. Like, I was like, all right, I'm feeling this, but then towards the second piece of the film, I just didn't like what they ended up doing with them. Unless it's some kind of trick.
Yeah.
It was almost like a Mandarin switch, isn't it? We'll talk, I'm sure, a little bit later. But in the comics, Chris, the Skrulls are not very nice, and so this first portion of the film here, they're very much in keeping with how they are in the comics. But I have to say that, when what was it? Was it 2012? The first Avengers movie came out. I kind of thought, when we saw the Chitauri, I thought, you know what, they're just like a substitute for the Skrulls. They should really be the Skrulls trying to invade Earth and get in there. But you can't put the Skrulls on screen because they'll just look ridiculous. Well, you know what? Just stop questioning stuff and just let these guys run with it, because, they've delivered again here. Because they look like the comics, but they could have so easily made them look really Power Rangers-y, and look really poor. But no, I thought they looked great.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I do know what the Skrulls are, I must admit. But even for the comics, my basic knowledge, I know exactly they're not good guys, are they? And then and even the trailer was in keeping with the Skrulls one, because we kept seeing over and over that music where she fights a Skrull on the train, doesn't she? The old woman,
yep.
and punches her and stuff. So that for me felt as if this was going to be the story. Now, to be fair, it's not. And just before I watched this film in the cinema, we had the whole Dark Phoenix trailer on. It's certainly not that let's just ruin the whole story straight away type trailer, because that basically ruined the Dark Phoenix, hasn't it? So it's not like that at all. But it does lead you completely off your way of thinking about what this story's about. So yeah, and obviously, she gets away from Talos and these guys, doesn't she, and escapes to Earth. And I love the fact that she lands on Earth and lands straight in a Blockbuster Video shot.
You know what? If I had not had that spoiled, if it hadn't have been in the trailers, and I've probably seen it online, I can't remember specifics, but so knowing that it's in Blockbusters, if that had just popped up, I'd have been so happy.
No, that was such a bad one to put in the trailer.
Yeah,
it would have been a funny drop, but I did enjoy like the Smashing Pumpkins poster, and other little 90s references here and there. They did squeeze some other stuff in there, but man, the Blockbuster would have been such a good reveal.
Yeah. And I tell you what, sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Go on, Dave. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, I'm scared how technology's moved on, quite honestly, because Samuel L. Jackson there, I believe that I'm looking at like Pulp Fiction Samuel L. Jackson. The job that they've done in de-aging him there, it just, I don't question it for a second. It just looks like a much younger Samuel L. Jackson.
I love it, though. They did a damn good job with that de-aging.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's scary how good the job is.
No, it is. It's really good. And I think as well, David Leo, it is Phil Coulson looks good as well. I'm a bit skeptical with his hairline, but they had to go with that because obviously he's going bald, isn't he now? But I do agree. I think he looked great. We've talked about this before, Leo, on the podcast. Like you look at what they did with Michael Douglas in Ant-Man and Wasp, and it was fantastic. But then when you look at Aquaman and his dad in Aquaman, he's absolutely. Have you seen Aquaman, by the way? Leo?
Yeah, definitely.
His dad at the start, he's absolutely terrible. The CGI, his hair and everything, you can just tell that they didn't de-age him very well, do you see in that? But Marvel seems to have different technology or different skills that they use, and it's just convincing. It's not even something you think of as a second thought. The only thing I can say with Samuel L. Jackson is, he's a 70-year-old man because he can't run. So,
yeah, you could definitely tell by the way he's running, like he needs a cane or something.
Yeah. I mean, they even play up to the fact that he gets injured in a hand-to-hand combat, don't they? To sort of say like he's limping, but that's not his fault. It's just he's very, very clever. The technology, very clever.
I tell you what, I would be delighted if at that age I look as good as Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh, he looks great. He looks great. He does look great.
For 70, he still looks about 20 years younger.
Yeah,
he's the man,
really
isn't he?
Yeah, he looks really good. And I've got to say, we have a lovely. This is probably one of my favourite scenes in the film. We get this car chase, don't we? Where basically she's on the phone. Somehow she can type in and tap in to Yon-Rogg in, the outer dimensions, and she's talking to him on the phone, and then the Skrull takes a shot, doesn't he, at sort of her, but that she saves Fury, and this whole action sequence now, and what they did with this one, Leo, I don't know if you'd heard this, and Dave, that this whole action scene was a throwback. They wanted to sort of do a bit of a nod to Terminator 2. You know, when Robert Patrick's Terminator, the T-1000 chases John Connor, and he chases Arnie, the T-800. I was watching it the other day, actually. This is what this was a nod back to with the cars. And there's a few films they use as a point of reference that they were inspired by, but Terminator 2 setting, because that was in LA as well, is one of the reasons why they tried to use this sort of thing for this scene with the train. So you can see little nods. And also, when she does land in Blockbuster, she does take Arnie's head off. The True Lies poster gets taken straight off. Jamie Lee Curtis is
I saw that one. Yeah.
Now Arnie's head gets taken clean off. But yeah, so they have this scene, and I love this chase. I mean, what about yourself, Dave? Because obviously, she gets on the train, and then she has that fight with the Skrull, doesn't she, the old woman? I thought it was great.
I thought it was a good kind of scene, but I mean, she took a bit of a chance, didn't she? Smacking that old lady. I mean, it could have just been an actual old lady.
No, did you not notice before, though?
She bumped into her before she got on the train, didn't she?
Yeah.
Yep.
So
she could have just kind of looked similar. I don't know. She seemed very confident. So sorry, Leo. What were you saying there?
I think it would have been kind of funny if it was like the actual old woman, and she just was like, "Oh my God, why would you do something like that?"
She accidentally got off at the wrong stop.
Yeah, you've not
got back on the train.
The thing is, she would have had false teeth, so she would have been all right if she'd knocked them out anyway. But this is where I've got to say the continuity, as I mentioned before, was not correct, because Carol Danvers is getting stopped by general passers-by, isn't she? These people think she's beating up an old woman who, I did not notice this old woman's doing Jackie Chan-like moves all over the train carriage. But these three people can stop her, but yet she throws someone through the train, and it's like there's no continuity there at all. That doesn't make any sense. But for me, I like them sort of scenes. It was a great sort of chasing scene within the film, and it sets her up because she's just totally focused in catching the Skrull, isn't she? So I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I think, and after that we get we get a bit of a Fury and let's call her Veers at this point team up, don't we? And I thought that felt a little bit forced to be, and I wouldn't have been happy if I was the owner of that bar if she just trashed my jukebox like that. Just to prove a point,
Right. I did like their energy, though, and I will say I liked Samuel L. Jackson as a younger Fury. Like, we got to see that, like, more naive, less secretive, sneaky Fury. Like, we got to see this kind of younger Fury who's still coming into his own. And I really enjoyed that piece of it. I liked the both of them together, and I feel like Samuel L. Jackson like really helped her pull this. Because I will say I love Brie Larson, but something in this one, it just didn't seem 100% for me. And I don't know if I was the only one that got that, but it was just like when in those scenes where she was alone, I didn't get this big arc of character, this conversion. I didn't really get that. She was the same from beginning to end, and that works, but it wasn't anything that blew me back. I guess as an example, I feel the same way about the first Thor movie. In that Chris Hemsworth was a good Thor, but the character was very, very much the same beginning to end, and it just felt like maybe with a little bit more time in this character and in this role, they could grow with the character, much like Chris Hemsworth did, because as we know, Thor Ragnarok, much better than that second Thor, better than the first, his best. And maybe that's the case here with Brie Larson, but I'm getting that same energy.
Yeah, I agree, actually. I think as well, with me, what I think as well, when she was trying to be funny and cracking the one-liners, it literally felt like she was reading a script. Yep. I know that sounds really... I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but it genuinely felt like when she's trying to be funny in the interaction with Fury, it didn't deliver. I felt later on it does, but this first half of the film, it just felt really forced that she was trying to be... Like, you are right, like Chris Hemsworth. I think Chris Hemsworth came to life in the Avengers films when he had like Robert Downey Jr. to play off, and when he was mocking his accent and stuff, and the seriousness of his character. And I do agree. I think Thor Ragnarok is one of my favourite Marvel ones. So I do get that with you, Leo. I'm in agreement. I don't know what you are, Dave.
Yeah, I actually found her quite charming, to be honest. I thought I quite liked the little bits of humour. Like you say, she won't make a stand-up comedian, will she? She's not got completely that comedy timing, but no, I quite like it with her and Fury. But I can see what you're saying as well. She's not funny, just a little bit stiff there.
Yeah.
But should we move on a bit?
Yep.
So Talos disguises himself as Fury's boss, and he tells him to go and work with Veers. And they discover that she was an Air Force pilot and presumed dead after a crash in 1989 involving an experimental engine designed by Dr. Wendy Lawson, whom she recognizes as the older woman from her dreams. Fury and Veers escape from Talos and S.H.I.E.L.D. on a Quinjet and head up to meet up with Maria Rambeau, a pilot and friend of Lawson and Veers. They're joined by Stowaway Goose. Yep. Talos tracks him down to Maria's house, and she learns that her real name is Carol Danvers, and Lawson was actually a Kree named Marvell and was killed by Yomrog before Carol blew up the engine and absorbed its power. So then in this whole second act, we get this origin story. So what do you guys make to that? We'll start with Leo.
So the second act kind of woke things up a little bit more for me. Like I said, that first act kind of felt a little bit Man of Steel-y. And for those who like Man of Steel, I did enjoy it as well, but the first act just felt a little meandering for me. This is where things some legs started picking up for me. And the movie started, picking up a little bit for me. But going back to what you were saying earlier, Chris, there was some continuity errors in that, like, just like that trade scene where she's being grabbed by all those people. It's like, that doesn't seem really Carol Danvers-ish. But I will say, I applaud the movie for blending her and Marvell's origins a lot to make a character that can exist in the MCU, because this is a very, very complicated backstory. And they put it together in a very understandable and easy to digest manner, by kind of making her a blend of both Marvell and Captain Marvel, and and Carol Danvers, and that she left the Kree and things of that nature. I was a little bit surprised by the gender swap, but I was all for it. I heard Wendy Lawson, and I was like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Like, is that Marvell? So I liked them bringing her in just like that. There was some meandering in the middle. I think that there could have been a little bit more dynamics, like in these Marvel movies. You know, you get, for example, in Winter Soldier, you might get a little bit of Cap and Black Widow investigating, but then you also get this crazy out of nowhere street battle with Winter Soldier. There wasn't really a lot of that, and I wanted some more of that, where just the dynamic is raised and we're suddenly in this high speed chase where we have to stop the villain. I didn't get a lot of that. The Skrulls showed up, and it was just kind of like this big, long, drawn out storytelling montage of, well, here's who we are, here's what actually happened to us, which, ooh, this is where it gets to the point where I'm just not feeling the Skrulls being these kind of saved like these mistreated and misunderstood refugees. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but I did not like what they did with the Skrulls there. The Skrulls and the Kree are both just as bad. And I thought that the movie kind of made it look like the Skrulls all along, they were the good ones. And I thought it was a little bit odd to have Annette Bening as Mar-Vell and the Supreme Intelligence. That kind of confused me for a little bit there. I was like, wait, so she's the Supreme Intelligence and Mar-Vell? I couldn't really grasp. But then they did throw in the explanation of it's who you see, like what you see the Supreme Intelligence is some kind of significant person in your life. And it just didn't really all connect for me. I thought the whole Mar-Vell storyline was very rushed. I thought it was odd that they made the decision to kill Mar-Vell in that manner in the crash. I felt like they kind of just threw that character away for this new one. Yeah. And I'm cool with the new with Carol Danvers and what they're doing with her origin, but I just thought it was such a diss to Mar-Vell, character who did have that title for the longest time. I mean, I don't think Carol Danvers took the Captain Marvel mantle till very recently. And she'd been Mrs. Marvel for a long time. And I think they would have really profited off of giving Dr. Wendy Lawson a little bit more time with that character. You know, she gets the powers and then she kind of helps her understand. I wanted a little bit more mentor-mentee again, and I didn't get it. I will say, 2 words that I was really happy to hear in the movie. Monica Rambeau. I'm super excited to see the next Captain Marvel already being shaped up to in this movie. But I just, again, this was a very meandery middle ground for me here, and some of the choices they made just kind of took away from the strength of it for me. But I was like, oh my goodness, they're bringing in Spectrum. Oh, I'm super excited to see her character grow a lot more. At first, I thought it was Riri Williams, but then after her mother said Rambo, I was like, oh, okay, so we're looking at Monica here. So cool little Easter eggs as well. I did love the 90s references, but I really didn't like what they did with the Skrulls, and I did not like what they did with Mar-Vell. I thought that was just such a diss to the character to just toss him aside like that and have him die in the fateful crash that shaped everything.
Well, I mean, let's talk a little bit, because I don't know if they've intentionally made this connection, but there was a film in the 90s called Contact with Jodie Foster. And she had a little bit of a similar interaction. It ended up, she'd made contact, and the aliens ended up appearing in the image of her father, I seem to remember. It was a long time ago I watched it now. And it was very much like that, you know, how the Supreme Intelligence can just appear as anyone. Yeah. So the fact that this made no apologies, did it, to say, you know, with the music choices and everything, it was right there in the 90s. And I don't know if they were doing the same kind of thing there, just as a callback to that obscure movie from the 90s. But Chris, I mean, what did you make to this whole section? We'll come back to Monica Rambeau in a bit, because I want to explore that in a sec. But I just want to get your opinion first, Chris.
Yeah. So I didn't see the Skrull face turn as a wrestling fan. I don't know if you are, Leo, but they started off the film as a heel, which is a bad guy, and then they turned full face when they actually came to at Rambo's house, and obviously we thought we were going to get a big fight, didn't we? Because the Skrull came in there. Talos was in the house, and obviously they had another Skrull pretending to be the mother, Maria Rambo, and with the daughter, and it looked like it was all going to turn sinister. And then all of a sudden, they went from being the complete bad guys to all of a sudden having a personality, and it felt, and they were cracking jokes. His scientist is there, who's obviously the one who was dressed up as Maria outside with the daughter, and it reminded me of, I don't know about you guys, the South African guy in Thor Ragnarok. The way the jokes seem to go.
Yeah.
It just felt like that. What's he called? I thought his name is Dave. Korg. It felt like that, and I was thinking, this isn't right. And then I kept thinking, right, well, they're going to turn at some point, the Skrull. This is all a big ruse. One of them in the room, like Nick Fury or someone's actually going to be a Skrull, and it's going to end up in a big fight. And I could see from the start, this is where we get the whole, Carol realises that Jon Rogue, Jude Law's character, is actually the bad guy in all this, as we mentioned, and she gets all the flashbacks. But I just did not see that. And you guys have already answered it, both of you, that this, I was going to say, I'd always imagined the Skrull as the bad guys through all the comics. So I was interested in the way they sort of dehumanized them and made, like you say, made them into refugees, Dave, like you said. But the only thing I'd say, which I felt was a bit weak in this middle bit, I did like this middle bit because it brought a lot of actual comedy to it, which I think was needed. And it wasn't just like over-the-top comedy. It was little one-liners and little things that made sense, because Brie Larson had not delivered it at the start for me when she tried, as I said before. The cat stole the film for me. The cat was brilliant with Samuel L. Jackson. I've got to say, Stowaway Goose was fantastic. But I don't know. I just felt it was an unnecessary turn. I would have just been happy for him to just attack. I felt we were getting a bit of a Thanos type situation where we started caring about them, but they were still bad, and they weren't, and they were good. And like I said, the only time I felt was a bit weak is when she turned up, when she was a friend Maria was there, and Carol turns up after 6 years and just walks to the door, and the daughter recognised her, straight away who she was. I understand why, because she had the pictures and the memorabilia, but it just felt that was a bit rushed. I felt there should have been more of a build up, more of a, it's a best friend. They fought together in the US Army. I don't know. It just seemed to come together too quickly and conveniently for me. And the fact that the Skrull found him and captured him. Well, they didn't capture him, tell us, but they come and they were happy to accept their story as they were actually the good guys, and they were just after a planet because they'd been decimated. I don't know whether I really, really bought into that, but I'm enjoying the film. I think this middle section is probably is the strongest part of the film, I think.
Yeah, so they did swallow it a bit easily, didn't they? It's like, oh, right then. Oh, so everything I knew for the last 6 years is completely the opposite. Okay, well, let's go with this one then. But yeah. I've got to tell you, I was really surprised with what they did with the Skrulls, because as Leo said earlier, neither of them are particularly, they're both pretty unsavory. So who knows where they might take it in the future? Because they could have like different factions of Skrulls, I guess. So you could still have some baddie Skrulls. I'd be surprised if they completely throw away the Secret Invasion storyline. I thought we were going to get that with this Captain Marvel, but yeah. So it seems at the moment, certainly Talos and crew are on the good side, and they just want to find a home, don't they?
Yeah, and also, Leo, we talked about this. I'd read some theories regarding Avengers Endgame, and one of the ones was that the reason Bruce Banner didn't change in Infinity War was because he was actually a Skrull. Now, and then also that it could be Loki as well, but that the way this ended, there was no logical explanation for the Skrull to be bad now in Endgame if they're in it at all. It just that ruins that theory straight away.
Well, I have a theory here about what they did with the Skrulls, and I possibly think that this whole find us a home is a disguise for find us very many planets to drop somebody off on, and we're just going to invade them when the time is right. Now, I know I'm reaching a little bit there, but if that's what they're planning with the Skrulls, which fingers crossed they're doing something antagonistic. I think it could work out, especially if they left somebody on Earth that is there to infiltrate Earth for a long time, really, really blend in. I think the Secret Invasion storyline is not as far off as we're thinking.
Yeah, you could be right.
Could be. But let's. I mean, I've got to say though. I mean, Nick Fury loves cats, doesn't he? I mean, he really, really, really loves cats. I mean, that scene there when he first meets Goose. I mean, I thought it was a little bit much.
I loved it, man. I'm not gonna. I loved it. I thought it was so against character.
I did. I mean, I've got a cat here. I've got a cat in my house. I'm not a big cat lover, Leo, but we have got a cat and we've got a dog. And I must admit, when the cat was flying, when he went into the space, when he's flying into space and it's there floating, I was actually laughing. And I must admit, we had quite a busy cinema, and I think it was only me and my wife actually laughing. We were, me and Sam were just, no one else was laughing. We were laughing quite a lot in this middle bit, and some of the jokes and the references I thought were really good. We were proper chuckling to ourselves, but no one else seemed to get the joke. And they're obviously not animal lovers because they genuinely were not interested when the cat was on.
Yeah, I think it was great, but like I say, it went on a little bit too long for me, and I was like, is Nick Fury really like this? And maybe it is to just show again that slightly younger, slightly more naive Nick Fury, and that's not the he's got an answer for everything Nick Fury that we meet later in the timeline.
Yeah, I like the parallel. A little off topic, but I actually just seen a meme here that says, here we see two characters who 100% stole the movie from the main character in their solo movie. And on the left is Killmonger, on the right is Goose.
Yeah.
It's true. And you two obviously have read the comics. Is that actually how he loses his eye? By the cat scratching him? Because I was thinking, I thought it was brilliant and funny because Nick Fury could say he lost his eye in a battle, but I was genuinely, the cat scratches him. I was like, that surely isn't the reason he hadn't wearing a patch. So is that just something he was never explained in the comics, so they could do whatever they want?
I can't think back. I mean, he was originally part of the Howling Commandos, so Sergeant Fury in the Howling Commandos, and it was only a little bit later he became this super spy. I can't actually recall. They probably read it.
Some kind of explosion. He was at war, and an explosion took his eye out. So I thought that maybe we would get some kind of like awesome battle explosion in this movie that was like actually what took his eye out this time. But no, it was Goose. And I'm not going to lie, that part I was a little bit disappointed by. Like, I get where they're going with the irony there, but I'm like, dude, like, he talked it up in Winter Soldier as like this huge deal. I lost my eye to someone who I didn't trust. And it's Goose?
Yeah.
Like, what a letdown.
I did like the line, though. So obviously we find out, because the Skrulls are very wary, and it's a bit of comedy, wasn't it? Because everyone's like, oh, it's a little cat, and he's like, that's a flirkin. And of course you get, probably one of Samuel L. Jackson's most famous lines, or you almost get it, so he says, mother flirkin.
Yes.
So I did quite like that.
Yeah. But yeah, so are we over to the third and final act then, gentlemen?
Yeah, so actually, just before we go to that, just a little bit more on Monica Rambeau. So when they first said about Maria Rambeau, I thought, am I misremembering this? It's Monica, I thought, and because in those 80s comics, when I was really coming into reading them quite a lot, Monica Rambeau was Captain Marvel.
Right.
So it was only after I became aware of, there was a Captain Marvel previous, and then, Ms. Marvel. As Leo said, it was 2012 she eventually took that mantle of becoming Captain Marvel. And we've actually got another Ms. Marvel who, hopefully we're going to see on screen pretty soon. But yeah, to make it, so it's actually, Chris, it's the daughter who possibly... And I'll be impressed if they can keep the same actor and everything like they did in Glass and Unbreakable. But, they're planting the seeds there that this will probably be the future Captain Marvel in, I don't know, 10 years or something.
Oh, that could be good, especially with the next Evolution Phase 3 of the MCU. That could be interesting, that, Dave.
I think we're in phase 4, aren't we? I think this is going to be phase 8 or something like that. But I mean, Leo, because that's my early memories of the character, and of course, one of my favorite events from those 80s comics is the Secret Wars.
Yeah,
and she was in that, so I remember her quite vividly from there. But I mean, what's your experience with this character?
Same here, actually. Secret Wars, the original line, and I remember being the exact same way in that I was like, wait, is Maria Rambeau gonna be like a Captain Marvel? Like, is she gonna? Because I remember that last name. I remember Rambeau. Like, that was. I knew that was Spectrum in some way, and I was like, all right, how are they going to tie these two together so they're best friends now instead of? And then when the daughter runs out, I'm like, oh, there it is, as you were saying, planting the seeds. However, I was wondering if somehow she would either be incorporated after Infinity War, because that's a 20-year time skip between the Captain Marvel and Infinity War. That's a 20-year gap, so. I'm wondering if she comes back and kind of is like the Miss Marvel to Carol Danvers' Captain Marvel.
You know what? You're absolutely right. Of course, it's set in the 90s, isn't it?
Yeah. So that 20-year jump will give her a perfect arc to become a superhero within that time.
Yeah. Oh, I'd never even thought of that because, and like you say, she was Spectrum. I think she was Photon as well at some point. So, I mean, there are different personas they could put her on. So, yeah, no, that's awesome, mate. So we might get her in Endgame, of course.
I feel like both Carol Danvers and Monica Rambeau have had like 6 or 7 different other names throughout their time. Carol went by Binary at one point, and
that's right.
What was it, Warbird or Warhawk? Yeah, Warbird. I'm like, geez, you get kind of lost in their stories, but tightening it down will really just make it easy and a lot more digestible for the cinematic universe. So maybe she could be the next Miss Marvel.
Yeah. No, that would be good. But of course, I think we do want to see. I really like the newer Miss Marvel or Ms. Marvel that they've created. So who knows? But yeah, definitely. I think I'm expecting now she's going to appear somewhere in Endgame.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Cool. So Talos leads the team to a cloaked ship in Earth's orbit where several Skrulls are residing and protecting the Tesseract. Another callback there. Starforce board the ship and capture the team and the Skrull refugees and bring Carol before the Supreme Intelligence. Carol manages to remove the Kree implant that was dampening her powers, and a battle commences, during which Yon-Rogg calls in Ronan the Accuser. Carol proves too powerful for the Starforce team and also stops Ronan the Accuser's missiles from raining down on Earth. She sends Yon-Rogg back to Hala with a warning for the Supreme Intelligence. Now, I'll start with Chris this time. Chris, what did you make to this whole final act?
I did enjoy it. I like the fact that at this point she's changed the suit, and she's to the traditional Captain Marvel, so it's the blue, red, and the sort of yellow banding with the logo in the middle, and obviously Jude Law's character, Yon-Rogg, actually mentions that as well, about changing her outfit. And she does get Monica Rambeau to help her change it, doesn't she? She has a few iterations of it, which is quite interesting that you can change your suit with the old wrist thing she has on, which is quite good. I thought the fight scenes that at the end, it was believable. The only thing, obviously, the Tesseract is something that in the Avengers, the original Avengers from 2012, is the main bit into that they're trying to protect and everything, and Loki trying to get. So I like that was introduced. And also we get the fact that Goose, the cat, Stowaway Goose, comes in, and the actual Kree do a bit of a test on him, don't they, and say he's a danger to them. So they put a muzzle on the cat, and then there was quite a funny line with Samuel L. Jackson where they put it on Nick Fury, and it's like he's a low risk to them, and he's like, it's obviously broken. And we were laughing at that. There's some really funny one-liners and little jokes at this last bit. But I've got to say, I was never convinced with Jude Law at all. And when she deals with him, and then she deals with these ships, and obviously the accuser's vehicle, and all the ones who've come down to sort of rain fury on Earth because of Yonrogue's message, I just wasn't convinced by him at all. There was a bit of a Hulk and Loki scene as well with this one, where she goes down and he's trying to explain to her, saying, let's go toe to toe, you know, man to woman, let's go and let's have a fight sort of thing. And she just goes, now forget that. Like when he says, I'm a god, doesn't he, Loki? And he's just like, yeah, you know, puny god, you know, Hulk. And it just felt like that. He just decimates her.
That's interesting. You thought back to that. I thought, surely, Chris, this is Indiana Jones, isn't it?
Wow. I've never really seen Indiana Jones.
What?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of him.
Oh, man.
Oh,
Leo.
Chris.
Sorry,
Leo, I'm after a new co-host if you want the job.
No, let me explain. I've seen bits of them, and obviously the famous bit where the ball's rolling, down, and he gets underneath and all that stuff. But before he grabs his hat or whatever he does, I've seen all that millions of times. But I think this is going to, both of you are going to actually end the call. I've actually seen the third one all the way through with Sean Connery. I've never seen the other two properly through. And that's the worst of the lot. I know it is.
Oh, man.
I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. I'm holding my head in shame.
So, I mean, I'm going to have to, I'm sure it's on YouTube. I'm going to dig out the scene, Chris, and I'll send it to you.
Oh, you mean the one where the guy's got the I know what you mean.
The sword.
The sword, and he just shoots him, doesn't he? Yeah, I've seen that. Sorry, sorry, yeah.
Oh, okay. So you just thought you'd douse yourself in petrol and the match, and then right at the last minute go, oh yeah, I've seen it. So that was the bit that I was thinking back to, where it's just like, yep, we're not going to do a fist fight because I've got powers. Right. But I thought it was good to see Ronan the Accuser back. I did have that spoiled for me, unfortunately, so I did know he was there. I thought he gave up the chase a little bit easily, though. So we saw that we saw Ronan in Guardians of the Galaxy, didn't we? So again, just connecting all of that universe. But yeah, it seemed to be like, oh, they've got this one kind of weapon, I think they described her as. So, you know what, let's not bother. That didn't quite. It seemed a bit convenient, I don't think he would have really done that.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like, I kind of, when I was watching it, right, I'm like watching her like rip through these ships, and I'm just like, wow, this is awesome. So I was expecting him to just, kind of dial in some reinforcements, like, oh, okay, so this is a pretty big weapon, but let's just dial in some more people. And I could just see a picture of like, hundreds of ships coming at her at that point, and they just kind of said, ooh, you know what? We're not feeling this. Hey, let's hit the gas and get out of here. And I thought that was just so against his character, because in Guardians of the Galaxy, he was willing to do anything to get that Infinity Stone. And I just thought it was very uncharacteristic of him to just kind of back out like that. It didn't feel in character for Ronan at all. And did you guys catch that Shazam Easter egg when they were changing the suits? The first suit she changes to is Shazam themed.
Oh, no, I didn't see that.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God. It was like a mostly red color, that same red that Shazam has, and a golden outline. And I'm like, holy smokes, they just dropped a Shazam Easter egg in Captain Marvel. That was
How
brilliant.
can they get away with that? I don't know, but it's absolutely awesome. I'm going to have to see if I can get that clip on YouTube.
Yeah, I didn't even pick up on that at all.
Yeah, I'd seen her cycling when they were like, oh, we're going to cycle through the colors in that very first one. I was like, there's no way that is not a Shazam nod, because it's the exact same kind of color scheme he's got with Zachary Levi's suit.
Good spot. Very good spot there, Leo. You've done us both there.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I do have to say, so Chris, the Ms. Marvel character had various costumes, but the one that they've settled on now as Captain Marvel really is up to date. And the previous kind of Ms. Marvel costume was basically not quite a bikini, but like a swimsuit and high boots. I really don't think it's not one for the 2000s. And
no, the Me Too movement would be having a field day, wouldn't they?
Yeah, a bit more kind of exploitative, I think.
Well, saying that, Wonder Woman's not far off, is she? Wonder Woman has that same sort of outfit. She has knee-high boots on, doesn't she? It's a bit of a revealing outfit, I suppose.
That's true, but I think they do a pretty good job of not making it too trust me, it's a swimsuit.
All right.
With like a little band. Isn't there like a little band tied to like the bottom of it? And I'm
she's got usually a little red sash.
All right.
But no, I thought the costume looked great as well, and I'm gonna have to go back and see if I can pick up on that Shazam costume as well.
Chris, I agree with you too about the battle. It was just kind of like, oh, boop, I'm just going to punch Jan-Rog, or she didn't even punch him. She like zapped him. And I was like, oh, come on. Like, I would have loved them to like just duke it out hand to hand. And then he like finally sees, oh, she's like come this long, far away. Like that was one big miss. I think this movie just could have really took advantage of. And that's something that Wonder Woman took a lot of advantage of. There was like no damage. It didn't really show the full extent of her like physical prowess. Like, I mean, after they took that off, it was just kind of all zaps and flies. And I'm like, dude, I want to see her like punch somebody through a boulder. Like, I want to see her like punch the earth and like just this giant crater sized gaping hole forming from her doing that. Like, I felt like the display of power was pretty wildly off, except for the actual energy powers that she has, which looked colorful and really beautiful and charming, and it complemented the character. I wanted some hand-to-hand combat. Like, give me some Daredevil style battles, man. Like, give me some punches, some kicks.
Yeah, I must admit, I think now you're saying this, it felt a bit like the Man of Steel, I suppose, the fighting, because I think once she removed the Kree implant in her neck, nobody could get near her. But I felt that should have been at the end. They should have been with the films, with these sort of superhero movies. I love the fact when the hero is facing complete adversity, they're literally going to die. They're literally on the end, and all of a sudden they summon something, and it changes everything. I always go back to it. I know it's not even in the realms for CGI or anything, but I always go back to Superman 2 with General Zod when he shakes his hand. Now, I know it's a pathetic scene when you look at it now. He crushes his hand and lifts him up and smirks and throws him off into the false ice they've got down
dry
there.
Ice.
Yeah, the dry ice. But it's one of them redemption things for me, Leo, and Dave knows this. I think they revealed Carol's hand too early, and she was too powerful before we went into this end battle. She should have got them powers after she'd faced all this adversity. I totally agree. It did cheapen it a little bit, because you knew straight away once you had them superpowers and took the actual, this implant off her neck, it was all over for everybody, So and the way she took out a ship, Jude Law got off quite lightly, didn't he? Really, because going back to the continuity, that made no sense by the fact that she'd just been in the air and gone right through a spaceship, hadn't she, and just totally took it out, and then played chicken with the. What's he called? The guy of Guardians.
Ronan.
Is it Ronan?
Ronan the Accuser.
Yeah, Ronan the Accuser. She just basically played chicken with him. He was going to blink first, and they bottled it and went off back into the universe. So yeah, I felt a bit cheated that we couldn't see Carol do a bit more, I think.
Agreed. I wanted to see some more action actually come out of her, and it was just. It wasn't there. I mean, they took the device off. She was unhinged, and that was it. I mean, it was like, okay, well, movie's over. Like, there's no more challenges for Carol at this point. And oh man, I mean, they could have did more with Ronan, or they could have done a lot more with Jan-Rog. I mean, you don't have to do both, but somebody should have been seen as a challenge, an obstacle, and there really wasn't that. The obstacle really was just her taking that device off, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought when she went in to meet the Supreme Intelligence, I've liked all the way through the movie the use of music and stuff. I liked Carol's little 9 Inch Nails T-shirt as well. I thought that was again just a nice little nod to say, look, we're in the 90s. 9 Inch Nails are massive at this time. But when they were playing "Come As You Are" by Nirvana, when she meets the Supreme Intelligence and the Supreme Intelligence even comments on, "Oh, we've got music," or something like that. That's a little bit weird. I thought that was a bit too cheesy for me, I think. But I guess, unlike you guys, I think I'm loving this bit a little bit more. I mean, when she goes into that kind of, it's almost like that binary form. So she's lighting up. I thought the effects looked great. She absolutely does start to take names. I completely agree. It's like there's no one who can really stand up to her. But my mind at this point is thinking, right, Thanos, you've had it now. Because Carol's coming for you. So I guess at this point, when she's taking out all those ships and whatever, my mind was already wandering to Endgame, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I think going back to the music with both of you, I don't know whether you picked up on this. I think the soundtrack's brilliant, and I will be getting it on Spotify this week. I'll download it because I think the tunes are really good. But to make it feel like it was in the 90s, did you not feel like the music was a bit too in your face? Like we've reviewed Bumblebee, Leo, and the music's so important for that film because it's set in the late 80s and stuff. But the music's really good. It doesn't distract. When like she pulls up Carol going back to the start when she broke the Blockbusters, and then the guy opens the window, the security guy is absolutely dumbfounded. And I think it's Salt and Pepper playing on the radio. But everywhere she went, they had to play some sort of 90s music just to say it's from the 90s. And I felt sometimes, not just the end bit there, the end bit was just daft, but it just felt, sometimes it worked and other times it felt too forced, like they were trying to say, look, it is from the mid-90s because we're playing TLC Waterfall or whatever. I don't know, it just felt a bit weird sometimes. Great music, but I don't know, it just didn't feel completely organic to me.
So somebody who like perfectly places music in films to me was a great example, especially in this universe, is Guardians of the Galaxy. The way James Gunn incorporated an 80s, 70s soundtrack into his Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I felt like they were really going for that here, and they just overloaded. Like, it just hit you so much one after the other that some of the scenes, it just kind of was a little bit unneeded. I was like, okay, I could have used, just a little bit of the score in the background. I didn't necessarily need a popular 90s song to accompany this scene. Maybe just a little, they could have just dialed it down a little bit and it would have fixed the problem. But I think they were really aiming for that perfection that Guardians of the Galaxy had, and it just didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I completely agree as well. I think just dialing it down a bit probably wouldn't have had it so in your face and just make it feel a little bit off. Like I say, I'd noticed it through the movie as well, but most prominently was that bit with the Supreme Intelligence where it was just, you almost couldn't hear the dialogue because the music was so loud.
Yeah, and I think the only time it really worked for me was when I think they were at Rambo's house and there was REM playing in the background, and that's the only time because it was low. It wasn't in your face. It worked. It was from that era, from that time. So that was really good and nice to hear it because you had to sort of really listen to hear the song playing, but you could hear it, and it wasn't a major thing. But I agree with you, Leo. I think it just was too much. And Dave, I agree completely. At the end, that was ridiculous. The way she started dancing, it was completely out of character. The Supreme Intelligence, whatever she is, I didn't get that at all. I didn't get it, and the fact she had Carol's leather jacket on as well was a bit weird. But like I say, I enjoyed the film. I feel like I've absolutely criticised it. There's some really funny bits and good bits in the film. It's just there's a few bits that were a bit off slightly, and for me, just took it away from what. And I don't know about you, Leo. I don't know how you felt about this film, but I wasn't a massive fan of the Black Panther. I felt it was a great film, but I wasn't totally bought into the whole thing. Dave, you were. Obviously, you give it our top score, but I felt sometimes with that, it was a bit forced for me with the Black Panther, and this is how this felt sometimes. But obviously, everyone has their opinions. I don't know about yourself with that one.
I feel you. I didn't feel that way with Black Panther. And I think one of the things that really helped that movie is the fact that you had an introduction to that character in Civil War. Then you gave him his own movie, and the origin story and story behind him was very quick, which gave us a lot more time to focus on not only that character, but the brilliant Michael B. Jordan performance of Killmonger. Yeah. And I feel like there was a little bit of that taken away here by the environment and world building, and most of it focused on, it seemed like most of this movie focused on kind of one big event instead of the characters exploring different things about themselves. And I will say I loved that montage of her getting back up in all those various different ages. But I think it would have hit a little bit harder for me had it been like Jan Rog knocked her down and then almost defeated her, or I just feel like that scene was wonderful, but just weirdly and oddly placed. If the stakes would have been against her, like, maybe Ronan's army is moving in or Jan Rog got the upper hand or something like that, it just kind of felt a little out of place. But I did love that montage of her past selves coming forward. But that's actually an interesting observation. I feel the same way. I feel like it was good, but it was not great. It didn't, and I've been spoiled by Marvel movies, because it very much reminds me of that Phase 1, that very first Thor, a little bit like the first Captain America. Didn't really blow me away. It was good. I would suggest everybody check it out. But I just wasn't blown away, and I didn't feel a huge character arc in Carol Danvers herself. And the mind wipe didn't really get a lot of exploring.
Yeah. What about yourself, Dave?
It was almost like an 80s amnesia, like a soap opera amnesia thing, wasn't it? It was like, well, she got all the powers and, she lost the memory as well. So Chris, in the comics, the reason she loses her memory is because Rogue holds on to her for a bit too long. And part of her psyche ends up inhabiting Rogue for a while. And so they've obviously gone with a different direction here and probably have to. But again, going into this movie, the Fox Marvel thing is so close. I thought, could they possibly have a little cameo for Rogue, an unnamed character or something? But unfortunately not. But, I mean, guys, before we go into our kind of final reviews, I mean, what did you make to the end credit scenes?
Ooh, I thought, to be honest, I thought the post-credit scene was the most Carol Danvers that Brie Larson had played. I love how she just it's this scene we've already all seen in the trailer. Everybody's chopping up these theories, and she just comes there in an instant. And I love how quick and snappy it was. And that they're like tinkering with the device, and she's just right there. Where's Fury? And I'm just like, ooh, I can't wait for Endgame. Yeah. I can't wait for her to be a big threat to Thanos. Like, oh, Thanos, you're in trouble.
Yeah. The only thing I think with this, I thought it was brilliant. I agree totally. But it is Steve Rogers has got his beard and long hair, and obviously in the Avengers trailers, he's back to having no beard and a slick back haircut. So I know he's got a slick back haircut, but I was thinking, is this literally just after the snap? Does she come in and go back? Because obviously, when we see the trailers for the event, and the trailer was on before this in the cinema, he has no beard or anything. So I was quite surprised by that. I don't know if you picked up on that at all.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
Yeah, because obviously it was a big thing about Captain's beard, wasn't it? Like the fact that Cap didn't have his beard in the trailers. A lot of the ladies were upset with that. And his longer hair.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The ladies were upset. So, Chris Evans, they'd turn away at his door if he had a beard.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the men, sorry. And the men.
And the men, of course, yeah. All inclusive here. But
I apologise.
I didn't notice that either. But I kind of felt from the scene this was still quite soon after the snap.
Yeah.
But I think the movie is a little bit further on.
Yes.
I didn't notice the beard or no beard, but I can quite easily write that off. But I must admit, I mean, I was squealing like a little kid, to be honest. I was just like, ooh, I just cannot wait for Endgame now. And she really turned up and meant business, didn't she? And fair play. I mean, they brought in all those characters just for that end credit scene. It felt like one of the weightier kind of end credit scenes to me. I mean, Chris, apart from Cap having his beard, I mean, what did you think there?
I just was thinking, let's see, is it April the 26th? That can't come quick enough. The first thing I did was, guys, I looked at my wife and went, because we've watched this 2 days later than when I usually watch them, Leo. I usually watch them on the day of the release in the UK. And we're 2 days late because of commitments, family commitments, and we were out and stuff together. But I turned to her and went, we're watching Avengers on the day. I'm on a media blank. And that's what I actually said when I saw that. I really was, it proper whet my appetite. Infinity War is one of my favourite films ever. So I absolutely cannot wait.
And they seem to not have a formula. I mean, I guess Guardians had about 4 end credit scenes, didn't it? It was probably more to do with James Gunn. But as I was waiting, waiting for the very last one, the second one, I was thinking this is just going to be a bit of a joke. And I think one of my favourites is probably the Spider-Man Homecoming one, where Cap appears at the end and just says, "Isn't it frustrating when you're waiting for something to happen and nothing does?"
Yeah.
But, I quite like this end one. But I text you, Chris, didn't I? Because obviously Sam, the missus, she's not a fan of waiting out for the end credits. And I was saying, you probably don't have to wait for this one. But it was a nice little moment for old Goose to cough up the Tesseract, because it was never explained, was it? We saw the Tesseract in Captain America, the first Avenger. And then for the Avengers movie, S.H.I.E.L.D. just had it. And it was never really explained. It was just like, they've got it because they have. And now we know, Goose had it all this time.
Because she says, doesn't she, Carol says to Nick Fury, don't you keep it and you hide it underground. So obviously that all leads into the Avengers. They've obviously kept it hidden, haven't they, for 17 years or whatever it is. 95 to 2012, if we're going off proper timeline. So yeah, they kept it hidden very well. But yeah, it just reminded me of Ant-Man and Wasp when that stupid ant's playing the drums in his house. I mean, I don't know about you, Leo, but when we watched Ant-Man and Wasp, them trailers must have been 10 minutes. So the end credits must have been 10 minutes. And I remember my wife going mad at making me a mouthful. We sat here to watch that. And I was like, yep.
But I feel like that's just such a lighthearted way and fun way to end it. And I will say, I was just like, wait, Howard Stark fished it out. How did it get to Marvel up into space? I was just like trying to connect the dots. So I guess Marvel and Howard Stark were friends, I suppose. I don't know how it got to Marvel's possession.
No, it's interesting that they completely threw away Marvel as a character, as you mentioned before. But I guess there's a little corner there where they could explain, or they could explore, where that connection is between the Starks and Marvel, and how Marvel came to be in possession of it. Because I going into it, I had no idea the Tesseract was going to be part of this.
No, I didn't. But again, I had to nudge Sam and say it's from the first Avengers. That's what it was all based around, wasn't it? So, no, it was good. It was good. And like you say, Leo, you were correct. The second one's just a light-hearted joke, isn't it? This cat seems to have a lot of powers within the world. So, great character. And I'll be honest with you, he actually stole quite a lot of the film, to be honest, in my opinion. But are you guys ready to go into give our review scores?
Let's go for it.
So, Leo, I'll give you a rundown. You can go first if that's okay. I'll give you a rundown of our score system.
Okay.
It's a 5-point score system. If it's the greatest film you've ever seen, we send it to Asgard. If it's a great film or TV series, not as good as Asgard, but you've really enjoyed it, it's Atlantis. If it's middle of the road, in the middle, you've enjoyed it, not too good, not too bad, it's Hall of Justice. If it's taking a dive or a turn for the worst, we send it to Hell's Kitchen. And then if it's the worst thing you've ever seen, Leo, we send it off. with General Zod to the Phantom Zone. So the Phantom Zone is the worst, the lowest of the low. So if you want to give a brief summary and your score, please.
So I thought this movie had it was good, but not great. It had a lot of potential to build on things that had already done well, but there was just some clutter that got in the way. I was not a fan at all of what they did with the Skrulls and Marvels. So I think some of the adaptation was a little bit wonky, but I did enjoy Brie and Samuel L. Jackson together. I liked the young Nick Fury, and I did love the CGI, especially after she went full berserk, that full binary mode. I really, really did enjoy that, and I thought there were some good laughs here and there. So I'm gonna have to head up into the Hall of Justice and meet with Batman and Supes to tell them about the film and just tell them, it's good, but not that great.
That's really good. Thanks, Lee. Really good. What about yourself, Dave?
So I think I went into this with fairly low expectations. I really didn't want to be influenced by reviews or anything that I was seeing. And of course the negative press. But I think going into it, I was a little bit. And I'm sure we've discussed on the show before that it was almost an inconvenience because, I know Endgame is coming up. And for me, this year is all about Endgame. It's all leading to that. And how is the universe going to look after that? So I was kind of looking forward to it because I love all this stuff. Obviously, we're on a podcast about it, so I do love it. But probably had lower expectations. And I think it exceeded those low expectations right after watching the movie. And I've definitely after that first end credits scene, I was thinking, oh, you know what? This is probably one of the better Marvel movies. It's not up there with, certainly not Infinity War, not the first Guardians, I don't think, but it's still very, very strong. Having had a little bit of time to reflect on it, I do think, it probably wasn't quite as good as when I was watching it. I quite enjoyed it, apart from that first 15 minutes, like you say, Chris, where it kind of plodded along a little bit. But I still think this is a really strong movie, and I think I will be taking my daughters to watch this. I think for them, I think they'll love it. The gender swap with Captain Marvel or Marvel rather was a little bit strange and probably not really necessary. I still think you had plenty of strong female characters in the movie, and the switcheroo with the Skrulls, very reminiscent of Iron Man 3 as well, I thought, with what they did with the Mandarin. But yeah, I'm gonna send this to Atlantis. I think it's not right up there with the Marvel movies, but I think this is better than things like Aquaman, which has made a ton of money and got rave reviews from a lot of people. I thought the costumes design was a lot better. The effects, especially when she goes into a kind of binary form and she's all lit up, I thought it looked great. And so, yeah, really, really enjoyed it. And like I say, I'm going to be watching this a few more times while it's still on the cinema. Chris, what about yourself?
Yeah, I think taking on board with what both of you have said, and I also think as well is when we review it, something that's fresh out the cinema, it's not an old property. It's something that I've literally watched it about 5 hours ago and come out, and I came out absolutely buzzing. I'll be honest with you. I know I've been quite critical of it. I came out of it thinking this is a really, really good film, but I do agree when you have that moment of sitting down, and when I was actually researching the movie background as I do, and I'd said to you, Dave, I usually do all this before the show or we've watched it, but I wanted to actually review it fresh. I didn't want to find anything out online about the film, and I'd seen the negative response with the review knocked down and the problems that people had levied toward Brie Larson. So I genuinely wanted to stay away from that. Of course, my friends had put stuff on social media. I'd seen some positives and some negative stuff, and I thought, right, I've got to blanket social media. Now, I haven't got the baggies that you two have got with the characters. What you said, Leo, I really, really do take on board with what they did. And like you said, Dave, with Marvel, where they cheapened the character and stuff like that. I genuinely have no idea about them as a non-comic book fan. So I've been toying whether I should send it to Atlantis. And then as we're talking about it and the things that we've both agreed on, and probably the blindedness. I was so blind of coming out the IMAX with watching it, thinking it was brilliant. There is issues with it. Now, I think I'm going to go with Leo on this. I'm going to send it to the Hall of Justice. Black Panther has sent the same, and I think it's a great film, and there's some really good things, and I'm going to watch it again, and it may change my mind. But at this present moment in time, I just don't think it's got the quality, and there's too many little things that were wrong. And I think what you said, Dave, is fantastic. Nick Fury's love of that cat was just way off the actual person, Nick Fury. I loved Goose. I loved it. I think what you said is actually changed my mindset and what Leo said. I think what I was thinking when I was watching it is exactly what we've talked about, and being completely honest and not just getting swept away with watching it in the cinema. So, yeah, it's a Hall of Justice for me. And a great film. Don't not watch it, guys. Anyone who's listening, we all enjoyed it, all three of us, but there's just a couple of things not wrong. But if you are a non-comic book fan, I think you're probably going to enjoy it more, because I've not got the baggies that you guys have got knowing who the characters are, other than Captain Marvel and Nick Fury.
Very good, Chris. So we got 2 Hall of Justice and then Atlantis. So, Leo, thanks again. It's been fantastic to have you on the show and run through Captain Marvel with you there. So give us a few plugs as well. Where can people go and get Geekly Goods?
Yeah, guys, come on over to, it's a little confusing, but come on over to geeklygood.com. So we don't have an S in our URL. And come on over to youtube.com/Geekly Goods, guys, and you'll see our content creation portion there. And on the website, you will see our full-on stock, guys. So come check us out. Like I said earlier, we do donate portions of our proceeds to our funds supporting arts education. And then on the other hand, we just have a lot of fun diving into the same topics as this podcast, Marvel, DC, tech, gadgets, all kind of stuff, guys. So come check us out.
That's great,
awesome.
Leo.
Awesome.
Thank you, Leo.
And guys, if you want to get in touch with us, you can get us on Twitter at Comics in Motion P. You can also email the show at comicsinmotionpodcast@gmail.com, or you can go and subscribe to our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Comics in Motion Podcast. Now, Chris, how are you going to see us out for this show?
Well, gentlemen, big thanks to Leo again. Thanks to yourself, Dave, for reviewing such a interesting film. I think there's only one thing I can say today. Now, the star of this show was someone who doesn't even speak. So all I'm going to say, guys, and I'll see you next week, is meow.
Oh, dear.
Oh. You want to be personal.
Where were you born?
Huntsville, Alabama. Technically, I don't remember that.
Name of your first pet.
Mr. Snoopers.
Mr. Snoopers.
That's what I said. Got passed.
Not yet. First job?
Soldier. Straight out of high school. Got the ranks of full bird colonel.
Then?
Spy.
Where?
It's the Cold War. We were everywhere. Belfast, Bucharest, Belgrade, Budapest. I like to be exact.
Now?
Been riding the desk for the past 6 years, trying to figure out where our future would be coming from. It never occurred to me they would be coming from above.
Name a detail so bizarre a scroll could never fabricate it.
A toast is cut diagonally. I can't eat it. You didn't need that, did you?
No, I didn't, but I enjoyed it.